Bruce Gas, boxing, jazz, and more. Thank you all for coming in here today, man. This is sun just came out. Wow, it's been foggy all morning. Just been hit with the sun. Let me see if I can pull that in over here for you. Show you what it looks like out there on the bay today. It's really, really nice, beautiful day. Let me see how my skills here are working. See if I can get this on the screen. I think so. Yeah, man. That's what it's looking like out the window right now. Very calm out there. The open bay, like glass out there today. Damn, you can see the reflection. I don't know what that reflection is, man. But anyway, that's what I'm looking at right now. That's the look outside today. Beautiful day today. Beautiful day. And once again, man, April 15th, that's tax day. So if you didn't get your income taxes filed yet, then and you haven't had your extension, look out. COVID's over. They're coming after you. It does look like a pool, Jose. It's a little too cold to jump in right now, man. Right now, the tautog are hitting like crazy. I don't know if you're familiar with that fish, but they run about 6-7 pounds. You can get them up to 8 pounds, 9 pounds. I caught one out my window before. The bay is loaded with those suckers. And the season just opened. They say when the dandelions are in bloom, the tautog are biting, and they bite on crabs and crushed clams. I think early in the season, you need the worms because they got a soft mouth, because they go along the bottom and they chew up mussels and conchs and clams and little necks, whatever's down there. In fact, they probably do a job on your finger if they ever got that in their mouths. But anyway, man, I remember this day so well. 38 years ago, man. 38 years ago. I was 30 years old. Damn. And this fight, man, was in the making for quite a while. People wanted to see marvelous Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, the undisputed middleweight champion. This is when there were only 3 belts at the time. The IBF wasn't recognized until 1989. I think Doug DeWitt was their first champion. Marvin wouldn't have had any problem with Doug DeWitt. And I think maybe I think Thomas Hearns might have fought Doug DeWitt. Let me check it out. Let me go to Box Rec here and check it out. Let's see, Thomas Hearns. And he had a long, after this fight, he had a long career. Sugar Ray only had a couple more fights. Yeah, he fought Doug DeWitt. It was for the North American Boxing Federation Middleweight Championship, and that was a year later, 1986. DeWitt hadn't become the WBO champion yet. Thanks, Skywalker. That's my Hagler Hearns shirt. Got the date on there, Caesar's Palace. And I figure, hey, man, if I'm not going to wear this shirt today, I might as well use it for a sweat towel. I could have said something else, but I'm trying to keep my language a little above board here, and trying to stop the F-bombs. which are quite a part of my vocabulary. So I'm trying to drop those, and you know, the MFs and all that other good stuff. Hey, Blood, how you doing, bro? Oh yeah, bro, the Duran destruction. I'm going to talk all about that stuff. I'm going to let a few more people come in here. I'm going to enjoy my blood and Fistiana tumbler here full of water. 20 ounces of water in here, man. I already had one this morning after my walk. Keep hydrated, man. And having something like this is so handy, and it's so cool. I got my brother Curtis Anderson peeking at me every time I take a sip, man. How cool is that? The marvelous one down at the bottom. One of the greatest jazz players in the world, Miles Davis. But you know something? I'm gonna hit on the Toka 2 today, man. The Toka 2, clean as a whistle. We got some stuff here. It's called Tupac, a legendary strain. Let's check it out. Let's check this bad boy out over here. Oh yeah, it's a quarter ounce. There's like three ping pong balls in there. Nice. Let me break off a little bit of this and put it in the Toka 2. Get the head right for this fight, bro, because this was a killer fight, man. This was so anticipated. It was postponed several times. But what we saw two fighters at the top of their game. Now Marvin Hagler, no lighter. See, I don't smoke the Toka 2 that much, so I gotta look around for a lighter here, man. Excuse me for 1 second. Here's one. Here it is. Here's the bad boy right here, man. I got my silver-plated lighter over here, man. My old buddy, the late Joe Short, left this one here. So we're gonna do a little trio of this Tupac here to check it out. It's a cross strain. 75% indica, 25% sativa. Danger, my brother. Nick, how you doing, man? Let me get right here so I can actually acknowledge everyone that came in here to see me. You gotta do 3. I call it a trio. Ooh. Yes, sir, that will definitely get me. In fact, I can feel a little bit of sweat. I feel a little bit of perspiration on my forehead. So you know that affected me. I call that a trio. 3 breaths, 3 hits, 3 seconds. Does the job nicely. And I also got some green tincture here, man. You know, I'm not into the combustion. You can see why, because cough, get irritated. This Green Dragon tincture, highly concentrated. It doesn't have the Tupac in there. This has some stuff called Afghani, and it's got some stuff called AK-47 in here. I tested it out, so I do have a tester here. This stuff tests out at 42 milligrams of marijuana per milliliter. This is about a milliliter. Need a few seconds to get the absorption. Sublingual, under the tongue, goes into the you don't have that second liver bypass like you do something orally. It's got to break down. It's got to go through your bloodstream, through the liver. It gets degenerated. This is almost like an intravenous shot. This is sublingual. It's kind of the way they administer something called Suboxone, different things. But anyway, man, let me get back to boxing over here. Let me get back to this glorious day, April 15th, 1985, man. Let me shout out who came in here too, man. Because I appreciate you cats coming in here, man. Saturday morning. Everybody's got something better to do. My brother Mad Chad, man, the biggest Marvin Hagler fan I know. Shout out to you, my man. Jose Diaz from way down in South Florida, man. Shout out to you, bro. I hope you're beating that rain down there, man. My brother Skywalker, always showing love over here, man. From day one, man. Shout out to you, Skywalker. My man, Blood Boxing, bro. Don't come any better than Blood Boxing, man. This is a man who gives me he makes me strive to become a better boxing historian, I guess you might want to say. But he makes it more interesting and fun. And check out Retro Boxing, man. There's always interesting stuff on there. Yesterday he was blasting a few Hagler documentaries on there, a few little nippets to fit in there. But always great stuff, man. Thank you so much, Blood Boxing. The Boxing Lounge, man. Shout out to you, brother. I appreciate you coming in here, man. MP, what I'm not going to say. Shout out to you, my man. Danger, Will Robinson. Shout out to you, my brother. George H., I appreciate you coming in here. Nick M's Classic Boxing Channel. Man, Nick M's, man, you want to go see some classic fights? Just go over to Nick M's, man. You won't leave there. You just break out the popcorn and the Toka too, and man, you get educated. You see some fights that you might have seen way back in the day, and you're gonna see them again. And some just great stuff, man. Thank you, Nick M, for putting that stuff out there, bro. Mrs. Skywalker, Cena, salute to you, man. Thank you, sister. Thank you for coming in here. George H. All right, man. Let me start. I'll tell you how this night went for me, man. This was 1985, man. This was 1985 in April. My wife had left me in Christmas 1984, and so she still kind of had me on her little finger, on that proverbial thread, so to speak. And this fight, highly anticipated. I was going to go see this fight. I went to this bar up in Providence. It was called the Penalty Box, right across the street from the Rhode Island Auditorium. All the fighters would go there back in the day, and this place was there since the 30s. Rocky Marciano fought many times at the Rhode Island Auditorium. When the wrestlers were there, they'd go across the street to party. Vince McMahon was dancing on the tables one night in there, man. It was crazy stuff. But anyway, they had a satellite dish. Back when the satellite dishes were about 6 feet around, they were huge. You had to put them outside, and you could get things like pay-per-view fights. You could get things like pay-per-view movies. There wasn't that many of them happening back then, but with this big, huge satellite dish and this big console you had on your television, you tuned it around. And they had a projection screen. That's got it's got a projection camera, and they'd have a white screen, almost like the green screens you see over here that the creators, you want to call them, the content creators, have behind their backs. But anyway, man, I went there. I figured the fight I saw before that was in 1982. Cooney and Holmes was shown there for free. They got away with it there because this place was, the cops would drink there. That was another cool place about it. It was full of cops, off-duty cops. They were all fucked up. They didn't care what was going on. It was a lot of fun. But anyway, man, I go there, and my ex-wife, she knew she wasn't living with me. We weren't divorced, but like I said, man, she had me. She knew what to do. She knew how to press my buttons. And we had made arrangements to go see this fight because this was a huge fight at the time, man. Marvelous Marvin Hagler in Rhode Island. This was right next to Brockton, Massachusetts. Nothing but Hagler fans here. This is like the Yankees and the Red Sox. So anyway, man, I said, well, I'll meet you at the penalty box. We will watch it up there and see what's going on. This is 1985. She comes in the place. I'm sitting there having a few drinks, man. Taking a lot of pills too. This was a day where I was into the Vicodins, man. I was eating them like candy, smoking the weed. Hey Joe, my brother, how you doing, man? Joe, you the funniest thing I saw in my life this morning, bro. You put in a comment. You put on there. What a great fight. The only thing that would be greater than this would be Leon Muhammad and Mad Chad doing the blow by blow, bro. I mean, I laughed so hard when I saw that. I called up Mad Chad. I think Mad Chad saw it too. It was hilarious, bro. It was really hilarious. See, the weed I just did is starting to kick in now. About I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so after I do the trio. My head is where it should be. So anyway, I'm in this bar and she comes in and she's got a friend with her. She's got her girlfriend with her. And they're all decked out. I mean, you know, my ex was hot. She had the big hair. She had the big boobs. I mean, she was looking good. She comes in there. Oh, I brought my friend. I figured we'd go out to dinner and go see the fight. I'm looking at her like, what the fuck are you talking about? Go out to dinner, go see the fight. Me with you and your friend. Yeah, that sounds like a really good time. So anyway, man, they're trying to tune it in the bar and they can't get it tuned in. And the bartender's swearing. He's like, oh, man, they must have done something here. I'm sitting there. I didn't want to be there. It already started off bad. I wanted to see this fight. So what I did was I snuck out the door. I went to the bathroom and didn't come back. I went down to Brown University. Me and Auditorium. They were showing the fight there. It was $15 to get in. I bought a single ticket. I had a bottle of Bacardi rum in my pocket. So I just bought Coca-Colas. I was high on the pills. I smoked a joint. It was only 10 minutes from the bar to Brown University. It's on the east side of Providence. I went there by myself. This is I can't think of any closed circuit events that I went to by myself. Maybe a wrestling match back in the day, but anyway, man, the place was wild. It was like a movie theater, and it was full of Hagler fans. There was so much action going on. There were joints being passed around. I ordered a Coke. I made a fucking killer rum Coke in there, and I mean the place was wild. It was on Brown University, but it wasn't the your typical college audience. It was all the locals, all people from Brockton, Hagler's hometown. I mean, people from Boston. You got to remember that there was not a pay-per-view on television. This was you had to go to a closed circuit, and I think there were like 3 million seats in the U.S. The fight was that big. Anyway, man, I got there and I missed the Cove feature. I don't even remember what it was, but I did catch the main event, and what a fight it was, man! What a fight it was. 3 rounds of mayhem, 8 minutes. They said eight of the craziest minutes in boxing. We're definitely gonna have to show that fight, if nothing else, man. Because this. Hey Picasso, how you doing? Electro Jed, man. Peace to you, man. Hey Johnny, how you doing, bro? So yeah, man, you know, living in New England, this is Hagler town. You couldn't be a Hearns fan. I loved Thomas Hearns. You know, I watched Thomas Hearns his whole career. The inevitable clash with Sugar Ray Leonard, man. The destruction of Roberto Duran, the indestructible Roberto Duran. I mean, Thomas Hearns beat Wilfred Benitez for his junior middleweight title. Excuse me for a second. I haven't been doing much on my readers over here on my other screen, and it goes off. But I want to put it on so I can catch, so I don't fuck up on days and dates. So I keep it on there too, and I got this wireless mouse, and I always have to. Make sure it's hooked up here. There we go. It's hooked up. Close that one. Open this one. Okay. April 15th, 1985. Big hair. A different time, man. A different time. It was AIDS was in the air, so you had to be real careful back then. The free love era was over. Boxing was at its best, though, man. Boxing was at its best. And this fight, man, I think this was on. I think it was on a Monday night. I'm not sure, man. It was on a weeknight. I know that's for sure. It was not on your Saturday like they do it now. And like they did, like last week, they jammed 3 fights. I'm not gonna say jam down our throats, bro, because you can't jam boxing down my throat. I opened my mouth wide for it. But they gave us 3 fights, almost, at the same time. Today we have 1 card. We have nothing tonight. I mean, who the fuck is running boxing? Do they do this on purpose? Do they want to split the audience up to it so it can just come down to who's going to be on this channel watching this fight? Who's going to be? I don't think there are many crazy motherfuckers like me sitting here with 3 screens in front of them watching all the fights. And that's hard to pay attention to unless your name is Lawrence Williams, man, L-Dub. Still like that Toka 2, man. Still something special about that Toka 2. But anyway, we're at Caesar's Palace Outdoor Arena. Richard Steele, the famous Richard Steele, the man who stopped Meldrick Taylor, Julio Cesar Chavez. He was the referee of this fight, man. You had Dick Young referee. Dick Young is one of the judges. Herb Santos and Harry Gribbs. Very popular names back then. And even, this fight was such a war that the judges had. Dick Young had it scored for Thomas Hearns, 18-20. That's 2 rounds to 1. Whereas the other 2 judges had it scored for Marvin Hagler, 2 rounds to 1. So this was a war. This was Hagler's 10th defense of his WBA and WBC middleweight titles, which he won, which he had to go the hard way to win those titles. He had to go to England. Hagler had to fight his way through the late 70s. Everybody was bypassing Marvin Hagler. He got a fight with Vito Antuofermo. He had to have Tip O'Neill and Ted Kennedy, 2 senators from his home state. They had to threaten the federations with IRS audits if they didn't give Marvin Hagler his just due. I'm digging on this Toka 2 today, man. I hope I don't get back into it again because the Green Dragon is my thing. I do not miss the congestion. I'm digging on that jazz guitar in the background too. This is from something I found on here, live at Small's Cafe, and I put this on just as entertainment in the background, so it's not to get a copyright because I didn't really know who these musicians are. I know it's Aaron Johnson Quintet. I'm sorry, 5 people. But shout out to Small's Jazz Club, man. If you ever want to check that out on YouTube, they do a live show every night. They have killer bands. I'm learning more about jazz now because I know the almost like boxing. I'm more familiar with the classics. I can talk Marvin Hagler, I can talk Ali, I can talk Joe Frazier, Foreman, all those cats all day long. But the new jazz artists, I'm starting to learn that again now. Starting to immerse myself and see what's happening in the jazz scene. To keep it Bruce Gas, boxing, jazz, and more. This is more right here, man. The Toka 2. So forgive me if I do another hit while we get ready to watch this great fight. And water too. The all-important water, man. I can't stress that enough. Stay hydrated. Stay hydrated. Water will help you burn. Will help you lose fat. Water will help control your appetite. Water keeps your organs hydrated. Very, very important. Very important, man. From the rooter to the shooter. Drink a lot of water. Try to consume at least a half gallon a day, and that's not much. That's 64 ounces of water. That's three of these tumblers, man. Easy. I shoot for a gallon, and it's not that hard. I piss a lot. I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes at 3 o'clock and I gotta go take a leak. But hey, it's coming out nice and clear. I go see a urologist on a regular basis, and I tell them the amount of water I drink, and they're like, "Yeah, that's a really good idea. Really good idea." It's all I drink, nothing but water. No coffee, no juice, no beer, no soda, no wine, no nada. Just Aki, water. I put some protein powder in that first thing in the morning for my early meal. Andre, brother, how you doing, man? But yeah, man, like I said, man, this is the WBA and the WC, his 10th defense, and this is his 5th defense of the IBF. And this is the only time I saw Hagler live in a title fight. I saw him at the Providence Civic Center. He beat Wilfred Scipion for the IBF, the inaugural IBF title. This was a weird thing, man. He was the WBA and WBC, and Scipion was in the top 10 of both federations. I'm pretty sure, because Wilfred Scipion was very well known in the middleweight scene. In fact, he killed a fighter named Willie Klassen in the ring, and it was in the boxing magazines. It was big. But anyway, Wilfred Scipion from Port Arthur, Texas. Ronnie, oh fuck, what's his name? The coach, man. I'm thinking Ronnie Harris. I'm thinking middleweights, but it's not Ronnie Harris. It's the guy that's always on there with War a Week Radio, man. Damn, but anyway, I'll think of it in a second. But he's from Port Arthur, Texas, too. And I asked him on a panel if he knew Wilfred Scipion, and he was like, wow, he's royalty down here. But anyway, I saw Wilfred Scipion. He fought Marvin Hagler for the vacant, the inaugural IBF title at the Providence Civic Center. And Marvin Hagler looked so good that night, man. This was just before, a little before this fight. Hagler looked so good, man. He was 60 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws. Just a destroyer. Knocked out Wilfred Scipion in the fight. I think he knocked him out in the 4th round. Let me go look and see here so I can get it right, so I don't say the wrong round in here, because that's the thing I do have trouble remembering some of those things. But anyway, Hagler took on Wilfred Scipion at the Providence Civic Center, 4th round. See, I can remember some things. 4th round knockout, and this was a 15 round scheduled for 15 rounds too. But anyway, Marvin Hagler, this is undisputed too at the time. There were 3 championship belts. Marvin Hagler had them all. There was no question. There were no pretenders running around saying they were the champ. Marvin Hagler was the champ. Thomas Hearns, the best junior middleweight out there. Sugar Ray Leonard's retired too, by the way. So remember that. Sugar Ray Leonard's not in the picture. This was the fight to see. Dig on those drums in the background. Who's playing this drum solo? Let me check this out here. Gotta be careful what buttons you press in here. Mecky Boone is the dude's name on drums. You got Aaron Johnson on the alto sax, James Zoller on the trombone. The trumpet. Jimmy Happerlin on the tenor sax, Mike Boone on the bass, Sasha Pina on the piano, and Nika Boone on the drums. Nice little jazz in the background going on there. But anyway, man, getting back to this fight. Their purses for this fight. This is how close this was on record. Hagler was guaranteed $5.6 million. Hearns was guaranteed $5.4 million. So there was no 60-40 there, man. There was no 30-70. Figure that out. That's as close as 50-50 as you can get. $100,000 or so one way or the other. But these dudes were both marquee values. Roberto Duran was the it factor. Roberto Duran had been annihilated by Thomas Hearns in one of the most intriguing junior middleweight fights of all time, which took place in June, just before this fight. and Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler had some trouble with Roberto Duran. He went 15 rounds with him. It was one of his early title defenses, and it was just after he beat Scipion, so it was for the undisputed, for the 3 belts, and he won a unanimous decision. One of the, and the judges had it fairly close. I'm looking down here. I'm seeing one judge had it 44-42, another one had it 144-143, and another judge had it 146-145. So Roberto Duran came within a point or two of becoming the middleweight champ. So, man, this was, we're talking about the best fighting the best. That's what was happening back in this era, man. There was no bullshitting around, man. And Hagler went on to fight Juan Roldan. Roldan scored an official knockdown of Marvin Hagler earlier in the career. But, man, these were 2 of the best. Thomas Hearns and Marvin Hagler, going at it like a couple of pit bulls. There was no reverse gear. And like I said earlier, Hagler was usually a slow starter. But not this time, man. Not this time. Let me see if I can find this fight, because I did have it in here. I do have it in the back here, so we can put it up.
Usually likes.
Oh, don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Yeah, I should be more prepared when I do something like this, but this is just one of them fights that we're gonna have to stick it up there any way we can. I'll probably get a copyright for doing it, but hey, it is what it is, man. We're gonna watch the fight. Let's go to Caesar's Palace. Put that on in the background for us here, man. Fight's starting right up. Marvin Hagler's got the Petronelli brothers in his corner, Pat and Goody. Thomas Hearns, he's got the Kronk stable there. He's got Emmanuel Stewart. And Lord knows who else, man. So here we go, man. This is the start of the fight. We're at Caesar's Palace, the legendary Caesar's Palace. And there they go, man. There's no feeling out. Hagler usually a slow starter. Seen and unseen, my brother. Salute, bro. I mean, look at Marvin Hagler aiming for that body. And Thomas Hearns, he's just planting his feet. What a right hand by Thomas Hearns, man. Look at this shit. This is a fucking 30 seconds into this fight. Damn. The referee breaks him apart and just kind of gets right out of the way. Boom. Thomas Hearns is dropping those big bombs on Marvin Hagler's bald head while this fight's going. In the first round over here, man, they're just Hagler with a big left hook. Hagler with a right hand. Unbelievable stuff here. Unbelievable stuff. Richard Steele is just on his toes, just staying out of the way. Thomas Hearns is doing some dancing now, drops a nice 1-2 on Hagler. Oof. I mean, Marvin Hagler's just moving forward, destruct and destroy. That was Hagler's motto, and he's trying to do that to Thomas Hearns. I mean, these two, they did not like each other. Hagler didn't like anybody that he fought, but man, him and Hearns, I don't know if they get along to this day. Thomas Hearns trying to go to the body, dropping a nice combination, uppercuts, and Marvin Hagler's not moving. Marvin Hagler's taking these punches well. Thomas Hearns getting some angles, trying to drop those hooks. He's landing them on Hagler, and Marvin Hagler's just moving forward, man, moving forward and pounding that body. Whew. Unbelievable. Richard Steele separates him. They go right back at it. Hagler likes him against the ropes. That's not where Thomas Hearns wants to be, but he's fighting off like a champion. Oh, he just rocks Hagler with a big right hand. And I don't know if that's where he broke his hand, but Thomas Hearns broke his hand in this fight. So he was a one-armed fighter after the first round. And a lot of people don't know that. They say, no, oh, yes. Thomas Hearns broke his hand in this fight. And you can see, man, the first round is not even over. This is just incredible. This is incredible stuff. And they're trading punches till the end. More action in that first round than you'll see in a whole fight, man. Unbelievable stuff. And Hagler just looks at him with disdain in his face. I'm still here. Woo! Is this the round that Hagler was cutting? Yeah, I think Hagler's already got the cut. Yeah, look at the blood on that red. Hagler's already got a cut on his brow. And the cut's a factor in this fight, too. I think so, man. Yup, he broke it on that big old bald head, man. He also, it looks like that was a punch that opened that big gash, man, right over that eye. That's in a bad spot. And you're gonna see where they have to stop this fight, and they have to let the referee. His name is Donald Romeo, and he's more of a fan than he is a ringside doctor. He just doesn't even talk to the referee. He looks at the fight and he says, "Let him go." We're gonna see this. This was like. Here's the slow motion, man. Look at that. Look at that fucking right hand, that lead right by Thomas Hearns. Sends Marvin Hagler's head back, and he looked like he wasn't set for that too. Maybe that was the one he broke his hand. And here we go, man. The start of round number 2. And Marvin Hagler already knows he's got blood coming down, going into his eye. The panic button's already been pressed. Now Hearns is on his toes now, using that jab. He's trying to keep Marvin Hagler away. He knows that hand is broken. You see, he's throwing that. He doesn't have the authority, but Thomas Hearns, man, he's a dog. He's not gonna quit. I've seen fighters quit with broken hands, but look at him popping that left in there, man. Oh, he just got hit. Thomas Hearns went back on his heels. Marvin Hagler did not rush in. He just keeps going forward. I don't know if he was off balance or if he got hit, but he was. His ass was close to touching the canvas. Oh, Marvin Hagler with a beautiful combination. Hagler knows he's. I think he knows that Thomas Hearns is not the fighter he was a minute ago. You can see Hearns is on his bicycle now. He's trying to get set. He's trying to throw those power punches. He knows no other way. This is the hitman. He tries to sneak that right hand in there, but you can see there's not much authority on that. And we're only a minute and a half into round number 2. Wow. All action going on here. All action fight. And Marvin Hagler just moving forward. Thomas Hearns is using his defense. He's trying to do what he did in the Sugar Ray Leonard fight. He's trying to become that boxer, because Thomas Hearns was an amazing amateur boxer. He had over 100 wins. I think he only had like 11 knockouts, 9 knockouts. He was just a boxer. Emmanuel Stewart made him into the hitman. He showed him how to turn those punches over. But he was a great AAU Golden Gloves boxer, man. Thomas Hearns, and he's showing all those skills. Nice left hook by Thomas Hearns. Tries to bop that right hand, but man, Marvin Hagler, he's having none of that. He's just moving forward, keeping his hands up when he has to. But he's taking those shots off the head, and Thomas Hearns has got a target. He sees that blood, and he probably knows the only way that he's going to stop Marvin Hagler is with a cut, man. Because beautiful hook by Hagler. Hearns returns one, and they're just both going at it. The last 20 seconds of round 2. This is just unbelievable shit here, man. You know, we have another anniversary coming up. I think it might be tomorrow. I'm gonna do my little on this day, and it's another 3-round war, and that was Sugar Ray Robinson and Rocky Graziano. So I mean, these middleweight wars, 3-round middleweight wars, were not. This did not set a precedent. But here we go, man. Hearns is back in his corner. Emmanuel Stewart, and working on that cut over Marvin Hagler's right eye. I think it was Goody Petronelli's an incredible cut man also, so he had it. He's pulling double duty. Thomas Hearns is getting his instructions by Emmanuel Stewart. Cool, calm, and collective. Getting ready for this faithful third round, man. Two close rounds. They could have went either way. I would give the first one to Hearns, the second one to Hagler, and now this is the eventful. This is the final round of the fight. I'm sure you all know that. I'm not being a spoiler over here. No spoiler alerts. But here we go, man. Here we go. Larry Holmes is in the front row. Look at the celebrities at ringside. And here we go, man. Marvin Hagler. Hagler knows this fight could get stopped on cuts. So Marvin Hagler, he's got to put Thomas Hearns away. Thomas Hearns is on his bicycle. He'd stop. He'd set up. He'd land that combinations, relying on that left hand, as you can see. That right hand is useless, and Hearns he's not on steady ground. Those big long legs are getting a little tangled. Hagler's got him where he wants him against the ropes. That's where Hagler wants Thomas Hearns. Hearns does not want to be there. He's trying to tie up Hagler. Steele breaks him up. Hagler comes right in with a huge right hook. Misses. Now he's stopping the fight. Ringside doctor Donald Romeo. He's going to take a look at it. He doesn't want nothing. Get him going. He was as big a fan as he was a doctor. And Hagler's covered with blood. He knows it's time to it's a do or die right here, and he's just unloading. Hagler's just gonna all he's got. You watch this right hand coming up. Beautiful jab by Hagler. Oh, look at that right hand. And Thomas Hearns is in trouble. Oh, he's looking for a soft spot. He's on his back. This was it, man. This was it. Hearns said to him, somebody's going to be carried from this ring tonight. And he's out on his feet, man. I mean, people were saying bad stoppage. People were going nuts where I was watching this fight. There's Donald Romeo taking a look at Thomas Hearns, man. Hagler. Butch Lewis gives him a pat on the ass, man. This is really this is an amazing coronation to really show the world. This is probably Hagler's breakout fight. You know, he was never presented his just due when he fought Tony Simpson. They chased him out of England, man. He fought Duran. There was you didn't knock him out. See, look at Thomas Hearns is getting carried out of the ring. I remember this. I remember watching this live at the closed circuit, and it was like, man, how poetic, how prolific. What's the word I'm looking for? But yeah, Marvin Hagler. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. Let me see if I can look at that right hand. Boom. That totally disorients Thomas Hearns. He's wobbling. Hagler follows up with another right. One more right for good luck. And Hearns is just looking for a place to drop. Those other punches weren't necessary. Hey, Big Duke, how we doing, brother? Big Blunts, salute to you, my man. Lady Love, how you doing, sister? I'm really going to have to watch my F-bombs in here. I'm glad the fight's over. I won't have to drop any of them because, man, we just saw an effing war. This was, phew. And this is on the 38th anniversary of this fight, man. I was up at a bar in Providence, man, with my ex. She was giving me shit. I bailed out. I went down to Brown University. I saw this fight on a closed circuit. It was a great fight. It still is today. Bang! Just watching Marvin Hagler with that lead left hand, man. Pressure bust pipes. You got that right, brother. And Marvin Hagler did not let up at all on Thomas Hearns in this fight. I mean, people got their money's worth. They both made over $5 million, man. Their pay was only off by a couple of $100,000, something you don't see today. This was truly two A-sides fighting. I can't remember what the betting odds were. I'm sure we could look it up and find out, but I mean, incredible, incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. We do a little more of this green dragon tincture. Got a nice fresh bottle here. I got to be quiet for 30 seconds when I do this too, so bear with me. But that was great stuff. That was a fight that I will never forget. I know you'll never forget that fight, man. Yeah, it would be something to see a war like this again today. Joe says, wasn't it bad enough to get KO'd? Why'd the dude have to carry the hitman like that? Yeah, I saw that too. I couldn't quite understand that one, man. But it was just such a devastating knockout. You know, Hearns had been stopped by Sugar Ray Leonard. That was his only defeat to this point. Marvin Hagler only had two. It was Willie Monroe and Bobby Boogaloo Watson. He avenged both of those. So I mean, this was the best at the time, fighting the best at the time. It was great. I don't know how many more superlatives we can use to describe this fight. And then we got boxing coming on tonight. There's only one fight coming on. We're going to see Zhang and Joyce. I don't know, man. To me, this is a good fight. I love heavyweight boxing. Zhang, he's going to be 40 in another month, from what I understand, a month and a half. So he's actually the elder statesman in this fight, and we all get on Joyce's case for being an old man. And you know, to me, Joyce has definitely wasted a lot of his boxing, his years. He should have had a title shot by now. You know, he just should have been making noise. I think he's too polite. He's a polite Englishman. He should have been raving for a title shot. He should have been at ringside for all the Deontay Wilder fights, all the AJ fights, the Usyk fights, and the Tyson Fury fights. He should have made noise, but instead he fights once a year. I mean, he looks incredible when he fights, but he just has that chugging forward, come ahead style. He's got that sledgehammer jab, and I love his saying. He says, everybody's got a plan till they hit me in the mouth, and it does nothing. Everybody's got a plan till they hit me in the mouth, and nothing happens. And that could be what's going to happen today with him and Zhang. I mean, it's two ranked heavyweights, extremely high ranked heavyweights. Joyce is probably the number 3 outside of Usyk, Tyson Fury, and I'd like to see him and Wilder fight. That would have been a great fight. I would much rather see that than Zhang. But Zhang, I hear you, blood man. 40 years old. I wasn't even 40 when Hagler fought Thomas Hearns. I was 30, running around Providence. I had a brand new freaking Lynx, Mercury Lynx. I paid $11,000 for it. And man, that sucker I think it's the only new car I ever bought in my life. Yeah, it was, man. I bought it when it was supposed to be a new car, but we found out it wasn't. The odometer was turned back. But anyway, man. These guys are both in there almost 40 years old. Joyce is already talking about a title fight. He should have had that title fight, man. And he shouldn't be looking ahead, too, because this is Zhang. I mean, Joyce has only got, 14 professional fights? I can't even remember. But he doesn't have a lot of fights from his career. He had a great amateur career, but he's not active. And, you know, that old age kicks in fast. You never know, man. It happened to guys like Sonny Liston overnight, George Foreman. You could see it happen to fighters, man. When does that experience become old age? And it could happen to Joyce today. And Zhang, who we saw him when he fought Dillian White, and a lot of people say he should have won that fight. I thought Dillian White won the fight myself, real close. Zhang ran out of gas at the end. You can't afford to do that in this fight today. So I think it's going to be a fast. I hope to see a fight like we just saw, a fast and furious 3 rounds. That would be awesome. But yeah, man, if anybody wants to come up here and speak on this and talk a little bit about the fights today, or even talk about that Marvin Hagler Thomas Hearns fight we just saw, I'll drop it in the chat here. You're more than welcome to come up here, because I really just wanted to show this fight, talk a little bit about the boxing today. The heavyweight scene in general, man. I love heavyweight boxing. Always have. The first fight I fell in love with was heavyweight boxing. The Ali era, man. The first Ali era. The regaining the heavyweight championship when nobody thought he would. Trying to get my bear with me 1 second here. My internet's giving me problems. Let's see if I can straighten it out over here. Well, it's not helping me out. James J. Jeffrey's birthday today. All right, Joe. Joe the historian, man. Shout out to you, my brother. So what do you guys think tonight? You think it's going to be Joe Joyce or Zhang? And that's, you know what I like about the fight too, man? It's in the afternoon. You know, I say the afternoon, 5 o'clock. That's like the old days. So we'll be tuning that one in, man. And seeing it, you know, Joe, because Joe Joyce, he has to make his move now. And I think if anybody can do it, man, Joe Joyce, he was at the last Tyson Fury fight with what's his name, man? Not Dillian White. The other Englishman, man. Why does his name escape me now? But anyway, Tyson Fury said if he couldn't get the fight with Usyk, he was going to fight Joe Joyce. And Joe Joyce is just standing there shaking his head, and you could almost tell that Fury was just using him as a chump. And he did, man. He's not talking that fight now. And Joe Joyce, he better do something. He better make noise today. And then he better get on the bandwagon and say, hey, I deserve a title fight. I want a title fight. What is he? He's a WBO interim, and that's the craziest title in the world. That's a belt that they should only bring that belt out when there is when the defending champion can't defend it. PGH Dog. Hey, I got my brother Blood Boxing in here. Blood, what's happening, brother?
Hey, how's it going there, Bruce? Everything good?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good, man. I wanted to share that great classic, once in a lifetime Hagler Hearns fight, man. I'm glad you stopped in there to watch it, bro. What'd you think of that fight?
Oh man, that was a big fight, man. Back in 1984, 85. The buildup started around 83, 84, man. I remember watching one of the last fights that I watched with my grandfather. My dad's father was the Duran Hearns fight. And when we saw that fight, man, we were like thinking, man, I don't know if Hagler could deal with this guy, Thomas Hearns, because Hagler kind of struggled with Roberto Duran at times. You remember that fight?
Oh, yeah.
The fight went the full distance. He couldn't stop Duran. He kind of had to work his way up the ladder a little bit in that fight, man. So, we kind of were using triangle theories back then and thinking that, hey, man, there's no way that Hagler is going to be able to deal with Hearns at this stage. Hearns, as a middleweight, this guy's going to be unstoppable. Now, Hearns was of course, he was stopped by Sugar Ray Leonard as a welterweight, but we saw him as a guy who had grown into and developed into a middleweight. And as a middleweight, we didn't think that there was anybody who was going to be able to beat Thomas Hearns. But boy, was we wrong, man. Hagler, he came through in a big way, stopped Thomas Hearns, put the pressure on him, and it was all she wrote, baby. So big fight, man, from 1985. I'll never forget that. I'm actually old enough to remember that one pretty good. So, yeah, man, great memory, man. I appreciate you bringing that up. Thanks a lot. Hey, Troy, how you doing there, Troy?
Oh, bless up, gentlemen, and good morning. How's everything?
How you doing, Troy? How we doing, Mr. Troy Graham?
Good.
Buckle Up Boxing. Let me shout out to Buckle Up Boxing in here, man, and PGH Big Dog. Thank you, cats, for coming in here, man. Troy Graham, you got any memories of this fight?
All day, every day, a fight that will never, ever, ever grow old on your soul, man. Every time you're watching it, it's like you're watching it for the first time, And the more I watch it, there was always these stories about how Hearns broke his hand on Hagler's head. When he froze Hagler that one time, when he punched him, and he saw Hagler do all this, right? Hagler was stunned. But that's when Hearns broke his hand. That's when he broke his right hand on his head. That's how hard he hit Hagler, but he hit him on the top of the head. And after that, his right hand was no more good. He tried to outbox him, but Hagler went into another gear and he just bulldozed him. He wasn't going to stop him. He wasn't going to give him a chance to breathe. He wasn't going to give him a chance to uncork that jab and get real comfortable. He just kept coming and coming and coming. Hearns said that he was in the corner by the second or third round, and he asked his trainer, what is this, the 10th round? He said, no, it's not the 10th round, man. It's the second round. Yeah. It's like that, man. Hagler basically, okay. Joe Frazier was asked a question about the first fight with Ali, and he said it would have took a bunch of men with machine guns and army with a tank to stop me that night. And that's the same way that Hagler came on in that fight. You would have to kill him.
Hey, did any of you guys notice that the referee, Donald Romeo, when he came in, he just looked at it, said, let him go. Because, man, if you go back and
break that good fight up, man.
No, he was as much a fan as he was a ringside physician. He
You know what's so funny, Bruce? I never even realized there was a ref in the fight until the fight was stopped. That's something that small. That's how powerful the fight was. I never even realized there was a damn ref in the fight. That's
Richard Steele. He was trying to get out of the way. He's another one. He did a great job that night. He was tap dancing just like a ballerina. He'd break him up and he'd just get out of the way. He didn't want to get involved in this classic, great, once in a lifetime war that we saw.
5 or 6 years later, Richard Steele might have stopped that fight.
Yeah, he was probably in Don King pocket by that time, brother. Yeah. Still mad at Steele for the Taylor Chavez.
I heard you mention a couple of other fighters during the Hagler era. You mentioned Wilfred Scipion, who he was a killer, and he literally killed somebody in the ring. Curtis Parker killed somebody in the ring. Alan Minter killed somebody in the ring, and Hagler dealt with these guys pretty good. He actually stopped 3 killers, real killers, So no, he did. He didn't fight Curtis Parker, did he? He didn't fight Parker. No. He didn't fight Parker. That's right.
Curtis Parker. There was a fight. It was in prime time back in 1980. Curtis Parker and Dwight Davidson on NBC television, because they were really building up Curtis Parker. He was the next Joe Frazier. Tough kid. He got beat by Dwight Davidson, and after that, his career kind of went downhill. But the middleweight.
Dwight Davidson was a good fighter, man. He had a long undefeated streak, man. Mm-hmm. Really good fighter back in the day.
Yep. And I wanted to ask you too, the Wilfred Scipion fight. I saw that fight, and that was for the IBF, the original IBF middleweight title. Now Hagler was already WBA and WBC, but they didn't sanction that fight. They didn't say there was no talk of if you lose, you're going to be stripped of those titles. It's almost like it was an afterthought. It was strictly an IBF event, and that was very weird. So any background about that, Blood or
I think
Troy?
it just had a lot to do with the IBF coming in as a major belt, because they came up from the US. Was it the USBA, the NABF that the IBF came from, the original?
The WBA, one of their the U.S. president was Bob Lee.
Yes, and he was
Bob
the president
Lee,
for the IBF. He was the president for the IBF as well too.
Right, and he ended up doing jail time because he was taking bribes from Arum, adjusting rankings. Arum turned over, and Bob Lee was the fall guy. He ended up doing time, and people now they say, "Oh, the IBF is the only legitimate one out there." Bro, do your research on it, man.
People say a lot of stuff. They say the WBC is the most what's the term they use?
Prestigious.
Prestigious, which the WBC's always been in the pocket of Don King and the Suleimans. I never understood that statement. The WBC
Even before
was the
then,
first.
they were not really the prestigious belt back in the 1960s either. Ali basically made the WBC.
Right. And the WBA was the first one. I mean, Joe Louis had his version of the WBC, which was the National Boxing Association back then, right? I think.
The NBA, yes. The WBA was the NBA.
Right. So, to me, I was shocked that they said that. But you know what I was thinking, sitting here thinking about that fight? Hagler Hearns was Gotti Ward 1, 2, 3 all rolled into one. You know that? It was all those fights rolled in. Yeah, all that energy, all that. Because if you look at it in the first round, even the stare down was cold between them two, right? Even the stare down between Hagler and Hearns was cold. And then in the first round, it was hell.
The build-up was pretty cold too. Hagler said, "I'm going to break every bone in your body."
And Tommy called him a midget. Remember, he kept calling him a midget.
He called him a midget, and Hagler was really pissed off about that.
Yeah, you're damn sure he was. Yeah, and then he broke his hand or something with his pinky. And Hagler's like, "I don't give a damn about that. Hey, I will cut my pinky off for this."
That's right. That kind of money I will cut my. Because I wonder how much money $5 million was back in 19. Well, hey Bruce, you got that inflation calculator? Would you?
Oh yeah.
How much money was that? Yeah. That 5.4 or 5.5. I mean, really, it was almost 6 million that Hagler got.
Yeah, because you got to think about it like this, Blood. Back in those times, you could buy a house for $45,000, right?
$5.4 million in 1985 worth today.
Hold on, let me leave the laundry room so I can hear you guys a little better.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about an auction house either. I'm talking about a brand new house.
It would be worth $11 million today.
Okay.
That's not too shabby.
Not too shabby. Do me okay. I got one more for you. This might stretch you. Joe Louis is $5 million from back in the 40s and 50s. How much would that be worth today?
Oh God! I mean,
about 75.
How much are you talking?
$5 million back in the 40s and 50s.
Oh God, yeah, something crazy like that.
You'd have to come up with an exact year for him to utilize the inflation calculator.
Okay, well, say
he got $5 million in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, say 1945 then. Let's just throw that number out.
What would $5 million in 1945 be worth today?
According to inflation,
$83,843,333, or $333, but
$343,333.33 today.
Well, I was close. I said 75.
85 million.
Wow, man.
For 78 years.
A lot of zeros in there.
When Hagler and Hearns got that $5 million, there really wasn't any big money middleweight fights for quite some time because Carlos Monzon, he wasn't very popular in America. He didn't really make very big paychecks. His paychecks were usually around $1,800,000 because I did some research on Monzon, and he only fought one time in America. He fought Tony Licata in America, and really he didn't fight outside of Argentina. He wasn't a real big money guy, Carlos Monzon. So
well, over here,
go ahead, Troy.
No, I'm sorry, but over there, he was a boxer. You know, I know he did movies and he had some other
Oh
things
yeah,
going on. So yeah, so he probably made a lot of
definitely. He
money
was a
over there.
movie star over in Argentina, but he just never did really make it around to reaching that American audience. They talked about him a lot in the newspaper over in America, and he was recognized as the legendary middleweight of that time period. But he was never really a big money fighter. Neither was Rodrigo Valdez. The money had pretty much went away from the middleweight division for several years. So them coming back in and establishing that kind of payday, it hadn't been seen for quite some time.
And plus, Monzon also had the reputation of being a wife beater, being a crazy
Plural.
character. Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 They didn't. He wasn't what they wanted to have as a figurehead for the middleweight.
No,
division.
he wasn't highly endorsed at all. No commercials and anything like that over here in America. They weren't going to give him that. With him, he dated that actress lady, Jimenez or whatever her name was, and he would beat her up all the time. And then he had an ex-wife that he was always beating up and treating bad, and he had a bad reputation, always getting arrested.
Well, he also kind of he controlled the prison system. I think he ended up getting like 5 years for throwing his ex-wife out the window and killing her.
Yes.
And then he would be able to go on furloughs, weekend furloughs, and that's how he got killed. He was on a furlough from his prison sentence, and he got in a car accident. But he was a crazy man, and he'd be in riots in soccer stadiums. He was the kind of instigator. He was just as they say, Carlos Monzon was a bad apple, and he fought in Monte Carlo. He fought a lot of European fights, but he wasn't really accepted in the U.S. And you talk about Hagler. Hagler wanted to fight Monzon, man. I try to tell people that, and they're like, no, that was before his time. No,
it wasn't.
No, yeah, Hagler was well respected back in the late 70s, and Monzon was the champion. This was before Hugo Coro and Mentor, and the whole the Rodrigo.
Monzon considered Hagler. Actually, there was a contract that was sent to Monzon. It was sent by Sam Silverman, his name was, and and Monzon looked it over and he considered it, but it never ended up panning out. He was looking at either fighting Marvin Hagler or Sugar Ray Seals was one of those guys too that was really close to a Monzon fight. I think Willie Monroe was first close to a fight, but those fights never did pan out. He did end up fighting Benny Briscoe a few times. Benny Briscoe might have been the more popular middleweight for us during the 1970s. There was also another middleweight named Rodrigo Valdez, who at one time held the WBC belt briefly because Monzon was stripped by the WBC. And, Rodrigo Valdez, he made his statement. He fought and beat and was the only guy to ever stop Benny Briscoe. And, it just they had the unification bout. It wasn't a big fight over in America, but with boxing diehards, it was a huge fight. Hagler wanted to fight both Rodrigo Valdez and he wanted to fight Carlos Monzon. Rodrigo Valdez, I didn't think wanted any parts of Marvin Hagler. Monzon considered it, but Monzon got kind of inactive towards the end. He was just kind of holding on to the straps and wasn't really fighting much and things like that. Because he kept talking about retirement for like the last year and a half. He kept bringing up retirement all the time, and he wouldn't fully commit to retirement, but eventually he just went on ahead. He fought Rodrigo Valdez again, and then he retired. And then the big money fights came back to the middleweight division with the Hagler Hearns fight because Mentor wasn't a real big money guy either. Mentor was a very good fighter, a solid fighter. He's another fighter who had killed somebody in the ring. He fought Jack Capucci and hurt him pretty bad in that fight. And he had the big fights with Vito Antuofermo, who was one of the biggest ticket sellers for America back in the 1970s. I'm sure you remember Vito Antuofermo.
Yeah, because he had the mob ties. Yes,
saw him fight many times.
Yeah, well, I think they did Briscoe wrong in that Antuofermo fight. Briscoe beat Antuofermo, man. He beat the hell out of Antuofermo. But, they gave it to Antuofermo. They had some kind of bet going on in New York, some after party going on, and they totally ripped Benny Briscoe off. And it probably should have been Benny Briscoe who had got that fight with Minter. But that's not how it turned out. And I talked about that in the documentary. I did tons of research on it. So
If Vito was one tough son of a bitch, man. He was an arm breaker for the mob. He's got some interesting stories in his repertoire. Very interesting guy, but he had a real dull style. You know, that was the thing about him. Just had that I don't even know what kind of a lot of all in fighting.
he was just a scrapper, man. Vito Antuofermo was a scrapper. He didn't have no real particular style to him, but just to come forward, he was really tough. He got involved in fighting because he got in a bar room. Well, not a bar room. It was a street fight. It was a street fight. He was walking one night with some buddies, and they used to walk around in New York making trouble. And one night they were walking in an alley. They saw a group of guys. Vito Antuofermo said that the guys just looked like they wanted to fight, so they had a big fight. The police came out there. They saw Vito Antuofermo. They saw this little guy beating up some big guy, and that's how he got in the box. And the police officer, he was another guy who was approached by a police officer, told him, hey, you need to go down to the gym. You need to become a fighter. And then that led Vito Antuofermo to some kind of a boxing gym in his mid-teens. And from there, he just took it. Rest is history.
Yep, for sure. Now, getting back to this great fight that happened today. Now, Thomas Hearns, he only had 2 more fights after this.
Two more fights at 160, you mean?
No, 2 fights, period. He retired. He fought John Mugabe, then he fought Sugar Ray Leonard. He never fought again.
Hagler you're talking about. You meant Hagler, yeah.
No, Hearns went on to fight a lot of people after this fight.
Yes.
Hearns had
he did. But you know what, Bruce, you just said something. Hagler is the only man I know that fought back-to-back fighters that could knock you out with one punch. Hearns, and then John the Beast Mugabe, who was a bone. You say bone breaker, like I told y'all the story about how he broke a guy's leg in the ring. He swung his left hook so hard, he missed, but he swung the guy around. It was a French fighter, and he broke his leg in the ring. That's how hard Mugabe hit, and he broke Mugabe. He broke him. You know, he made him. He basically made him quit. He made him quit. He beat his ass down, boy.
He was tough. I mean, Sunday afternoon NBC, they used to feature a lot of John the Beast Mugabe. His fight with James Hard Rock Green, with Frank the Animal Fletcher. I mean, he was a tough.
James was a tough dude because I don't think John ever took him out. James was tough.
Hard Rock, yeah. He used to train punching bubbles. I'll never forget that. They used to show his training habits. And his trainer would have the bubble wand, and James would pop, punching the bubbles. Very, very unorthodox stuff, but nonetheless, the middleweights was so great back then. They just one after another, and they were featured. Like I said, NBC had a thing with the middleweights. Rene Jacot, he was another man.
That's the one. That's the French guy, I think, I told you about. I think that's the one who John the Beast broke his leg. He was from France or somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think he might have won a junior middleweight championship.
Yeah, okay, well, that's him.
So,
that's him.
That's him. Well, you know what? Hagler only fought 2 more times, but he had a mandatory that was supposed to fight him rather than Sugar Ray Leonard, and the mandatory stepped aside. He was a young undefeated fighter out of the UK named Harold Graham. And he was supposed to be in line next to fight Marvin Hagler.
That's my cousin, y'all.
Fighting Sugar Ray Leonard instead.
Yeah, he's supposed to fight my cousin, huh? He would have knocked him out.
Oh, are you related to Harold Graham?
Never met him, but yes. Never met him, but yes, we are.
Well, you do know that he was supposed to get that Hagler fight.
I know today, thanks to you. No, I didn't know that. He was
rated very high, and he was looking for. He had actually become the #1 challenger. I don't know if they placed the mandatory status on him, but he became the #1 challenger for one of those titles. I can't remember which one it was between the IBF, WBA, and WBC. And Hagler never ended up fighting him. He ended up fighting Sugar Ray Leonard instead.
He was coming over here to the United States, right?
He probably would have came over here because Hagler said he was never going back to the UK again.
Well, let me tell you what would have happened. This will always happens with him when he comes to the United States. He puts on a good show. This is Harold Graham, and then somewhere in the middle rounds he tightens up and he loses. He puts on a great show. He gives anybody hell, and then somewhere in the middle rounds he just tightens up. I don't know what it is.
Yep.
Vinny
He did have some success over here, though. Harold Graham, he had a few good fights over here, but I know he fought some guy over here in 86 right before he fought Hagler when I was doing the research, and he was the EBU middleweight champion at that time. So he was on his way up. He was undefeated. He had the EBU strap, which usually of course, he also had the BFC at that time. So he was on his way up to a title shot, man. He was highly rated, and there was some talk of him fighting Marvin Hagler. He just never did get that shot. Marvin Hagler retired after that fight. Sugar Ray Leonard went on to fight select fights. And I think Harold Graham ended up losing a fight to Sambai Colombe.
And to Mike McCullough.
About a month or two after that fight between Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard.
And then Hearns went on to fight in every damn weight class that ever existed.
He also fought Vinny Pazienza, and I was talking to Paz a few weeks ago, and he told me that Harold Graham used loaded gloves. He said he went in the dressing room after, and his tapes were his hand wraps were plastered. They had plaster of Paris in there, and he said he couldn't believe how hard he hit. But it was funny. He mentioned he was supposed to send his people in the dressing room to see Harold Graham get his hands wrapped, but he went in there. His hands were already wrapped and his gloves were on. And Harold Graham is a very religious person, so Vinny didn't question. He was in foreign territory, and he told me and Mad Chad in the car. He says Harold Graham had loaded gloves when he fought him. So.
That was in the later 90s. And Harold Graham was a little bit past his prime by the time he fought Vinny Paz. I don't know if he did it at an earlier date, but Nick M's Classic Boxing just helped us out because I knew I remembered what I was saying was true. But Mark Kaler, I think he was a British fighter too. The winner of that fight was supposed to fight Marvin Hagler because that was for an EBU European strap at that time. If from what I could remember, I did the research. I never had planned on taking my Marvin Hagler documentary into his title reign, but I did kind of, look a little forward to try to remind myself because I didn't really understand the politics at that time of what was going on outside of that Hagler Sugar Ray Leonard fight. We were all focused on that fight. We weren't looking at mandatories at that time and things like that. But Harold Graham had established himself as a mandatory for Marvin Hagler after the Mark Kaler fight.
Yeah, there was talks of a rematch, and Hearns said that it was his fault that it was never a rematch. He was just I guess you call it, in his feelings are still upset, and it was never taught. He priced himself out. Let's just put it that way, because it isn't like it was Hearns' fault why there wasn't a rematch, and Hearns has come out and said that. Yeah, I would have loved to see the rematch. I think Hearns probably could outbox him in the rematch, and then he would have been a third fight.
Well, I think that Marvin Hagler was so focused on a Sugar Ray Leonard fight. When Sugar Ray Leonard decided to make his comeback, Marvin Hagler basically put everything else on the back burner, man. He wanted that Sugar Ray Leonard fight. Thomas Hearns, he ended up, I think he might have went back down to the super welterweight division, and then he ended up making a big-ass move 2 years later, moving up to light heavyweight and fighting Dennis Andrews. If y'all remember that.
Yeah, but he stopped at 168, didn't he? Didn't he pick up a title at 168?
He did later. He skipped 168 at first, and then he in 1989 he moved up into 168 because 168 really wasn't of significance. And in 88, it was in 88 he fought James the Heat Kinchin, which was for the WBA super middleweight title. The super middleweight division really wasn't significant at that time, and then he ended up fighting Sugar Ray Leonard in 89 in that rematch, and there was a WBC super middleweight title on the line in that fight along with the WBO super
I actually remember that fight. James Kitchen was doped up out his mind. He was on painkillers.
That was a razor thin fight too. That was a close fight
because he was doped up out his mind on painkillers. Tommy
What
hit
year
him
was that?
with every right hand in the world, and he wouldn't go down. But after the fight, once he came down from the painkillers, he felt every bit of it. He was
1988. I was doped up on painkillers that year too, so I I could see it. And
because you know who knocked out James Kitchen, Bruce? Virgil Hill.
okay, Virgil Hill.
Yeah.
Quite a bit of people knocked out James Kinchin eventually. Eventually, he got knocked out by quite a bit of people.
Yeah, he. You know what was a great fight for Thomas Hearns? It was only a 1-round fight, man. But the James Schuler fight, that was that was probably Hearns at his best. Because Schuler, we had real high hopes for James Schuler. You know, he was an awesome amateur. Had a stellar professional career. Just Thomas Hearns on that night. That's the night Thomas Hearns came back from the Marvin Hagler beating, and he took it out on poor James Schuler. You know, it's a sad ending. James died in a motorcycle accident. You know, within a week or so of that fight, and another one of the tragic things in boxing that happens.
Right. Yeah, and then in a class move, Hearns actually wanted to give his family the belt, but I think his family told him to keep the belt or whatever. Yeah.
No, he did. I remember the photograph in one of the boxing magazines at the funeral. Thomas Hearns draped his USBA middleweight title over the coffin. It'd bring a tear to your eye, you know. It was one of those one of those marks. You know, I can never forget that.
Yeah, because you know what it is, man. Fighters.
I think he was buried with the belt. I think he was buried with the belt.
Yeah, I think so. I think you might be right. But you know what it is? When you get in that ring with someone, you earn their respect. And they earned each other's respect in there. And he had, you know, Hearns was like, you know, his life is much more important than the belt. But I much rather him get buried with the belt because he was the champion in my eyes, you know? So that was a class act right there to me, at least. Yeah.
Hey, what do you guys?
I'm glad that Marvin Hagler did retire, though, because I'm looking at a 1988 ranking, and right when Marvin Hagler did retire, there was all of these middleweights. The division totally changed in 1988. You had Julian Jackson there. You had Mike McCallum there. You had Harold Graham there. You had Iron Barkley there. You had Michael Nunn there. You had Samba Kalambe there. And then the year after that, you started getting in some more young middleweights would come into the picture. So, I mean, you got the G-Man coming in, Michael Watson, Steve Collins, Nigel Benn makes his way into the top 10. You know, there was a lot of middleweights that came into the game at that point. So maybe it's a good thing. I don't know if Marvin Hagler could have survived at his age. Some young middleweights that were coming in, even guys like Lamar Kid Fire Parks. There was so many middleweights that were coming in at that time. They were rated. These guys were already fighting in '87, but they actually made their ways into the top 10 in 1988, and it would have just been a lot of heat for Marvin Hagler to have to handle over the next few years.
Whatever happened to Parks, Blood? Since you mentioned his name, whatever happened to Parks?
Kid Fire, he was HIV positive.
Yeah, that's what I read, man. Damn. He had,
but he's still around though. He's still around. Trick Note.
He's still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because he was ranked up there with James Toney and Roy Jones, and they were coming up. Yep. And then he fought Reggie Johnson, and that all came crumbling down.
Yep, and Reggie Johnson, that's another name you just mentioned right there, Troy. He was also rated as early as 1989. So 1 or 2 years after Hagler, you had all kinds of new middleweights in there. So I don't know. How do you guys think Hagler would have held up against some of those guys? Roy Jones is coming in here.
I think he would have got past Julian Jackson. I don't think he would have been around for the James and Toney and them because that's years. We're talking about years down the line after that. But
James Toney, because James Toney is ranked here in 1990, which is 3 years later. So it would have been 3 years later for Toney. Yeah. But the guys such as Michael Nunn, Samba Kalambe, Frank Tate, Michael Watson, Chris Eubank was around, Steve Collins, Mike McCallum, even Reggie Johnson. Reggie Johnson makes his way early in here too.
I think how they were moving back then,
like a year or two after Hagler left.
No, but really, at that stage in life, Blood, I think that Hagler was wise enough to make moves where it was like, risk and reward, which is why he never fought Mike McCollum, because it was a greater risk and it wasn't worth the reward. But a guy like Julian Jackson, because he could punch and he was kind of high profile, that would have been worth the fight, right? And who else did you mention in there?
There was Frank Tate, who kind of ended up.
No. Frank
a lot
Tate
of people
was,
thought, but you remember though, Troy Graham. A lot of people and Bruce, they thought that he was going to be, because he was an Olympian from the 1984 Olympics.
Yeah.
They thought that he was going to be a successor to Hagler. There was also Michael Nunn. Michael Nunn was rated as him and Frank Tate was in line in 87. They were already moving. There was Harold Graham, Julian Jackson, Michael Nunn, Frank Tate. Those guys were set for title bouts if Hagler would have stayed around.
Yeah, so I see Julian Jackson getting a shot, and maybe if Nunn, because Nunn didn't really have a following until he really didn't.
Until he beat Frank Tate.
After Nunn won the title, Nunn was a pretty popular fighter. I think Nunn was probably one of the biggest reasons Hagler retired.
Because until he beat Tate, and then he had a couple of other wins, but he really was never that guy. None. He was never that guy where you could say, people came out to see him.
Momentum. What happened, Troy, is he took the momentum from Frank Tate, because Frank Tate was supposed to be the guy who had the red carpet rolled out for him. He beat Michael Elijah Day. I'm sure you guys remember him.
Michael Jackson of boxing.
Yes, he beat the Jerry curl out of Michael Elijah Day's head, and then who you call it? Michael Nunn came in and upset Frank Tate, a guy that Frank Tate had beat twice in the amateurs. So he came in there, he took his momentum pretty much, and then HBO had picked up Michael Nunn. And all of this is this is 88 and 89. Hagler retired in 87. So these guys were right around the corner for Hagler. And Hagler was an older guy who was in his mid-30s at that time. Yeah. So this is not like I think the middleweight waters were very deep in the late 80s and early 90s. Real deeper than they was in the late 70s, in my opinion.
No, Hagler had a lot of money. Hagler was one of the richest boxers at the time when he retired.
45 million, I think. Yeah, 45 million.
Well, whatever it was, I heard a little more than that, but regardless, he didn't have to do it for money, and I think those guys were too hungry, too back to back. I think Hagler already lived those wars in Philadelphia. He already had a record title defenses. Yeah, no, I think Hagler wisely retired before he had to deal with that. Man, I remember Michael Nunn. His fight with James Toney was a pay-per-view fight. That was on the Knockout TV. Remember KO TV?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure do.
And that was such a shock, man. It was from Davenport, Iowa. It was a homecoming for Michael Nunn, and I'm watching that. It was on a Friday night. I didn't even really know the fight was on, and I'm messing with the black box, and I'm like, whoa, here we go, from Davenport, Iowa, and James Toney come out of nowhere, throws this freaking left hook, I believe it was, just crumbled Michael Nunn, the unthinkable. It was like, whoa, and that shook the middleweight division up right there. It was a whole. That was.
What's so funny is I did know who James Toney was before that fight, because I actually have some fights on VHS before he fought Michael Nunn. I posted one of them one time, but James Toney, man, I knew who he was, but I didn't think he was going to beat Michael Nunn.
No, I
didn't think so either, because he was still green. But if you watch the fight, James was touching him with that left hook the whole night, but Nunn was rolling with it. But he kept touching him until finally Nunn got tired. Is what happened. Nunn got tired and let his guard down, and James sucked it up with one big left hook, and that was it for him. He straightened him up real good.
Both of those guys are such cool guys too. I talked to both of them on you and Major Key brought him on the show.
Yeah.
Michael Nunn said, he said to me, he goes, Bruce Gass, you're ever out in Davenport, you look me up, I'm going to buy you a steak dinner. And my wife is sitting here and she's like, whoa. And I'm never going to forget that. And if I'm ever out there, I hope he remembers who I am, man, because it's an honor. He was such a nice guy. And then once again, James Toney, he was awesome when he was on there.
Man. James is a good dude. He has a real sharp sense of humor, but he's a good dude, man.
Oh, he was on YouTube.
That was really nice of you, Troy, you and Major Key. for letting us
That
talk
was,
James
man.
Tony that time. We appreciate that.
For
Thank you,
sure.
thank you, sir.
Never forget that, man.
I tell you what, man, I'm dying to put. Well, I don't even want to put it out here because I want somebody else to do. But I'm trying to put together a show with a bunch of light heavyweights that you all would know. But I'm not going to say their names yet. I don't want nobody to take it from me. But we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out, right?
I can't wait, bro. I can't wait.
Yeah, but
Light heavyweight was pretty interesting too. I mean, I was a diehard boxing fan in the 80s and 90s. I knew them all back then. Unlike now, I don't really know them as well as I did back then. It's funny because we have the internet to aid us and everything, but I still don't know the fighters like I did back then when I was just following them in a magazine and, scanning through TV networks to find fights and things like that. I knew the fighters better back then. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you know what, y'all? I definitely wanted to always reach out to and this is changing the subject a little bit to Troy Dorsey, and I found him. I don't know if you got a chance to talk to him, Bruce. Did you talk to Troy Dorsey?
Yeah, I had him on a show. I had him on a show on.
Yeah,
he's another nice guy, man. He just very open up. He's got a gym right now down in Texas. He's mixed martial arts gym.
He was telling
cool guy.
about his drug habit and how he used to run uphill. Nobody runs uphill, Bruce. Nobody. Goats run uphill. Goats run uphill. People don't run uphill, right?
Marvin Hagler used to run through those blizzards down the dunes in Provincetown.
War. Yeah.
I mean, that was the epitome of training. These boxers. Hey, and shout out to my man Cano Loco who's in here, man. Thank you for coming by, brother. But fighters don't train like Marvin Hagler did anymore. You know, he was a different breed. He was always in shape. In fact, he was lighter than Thomas Hearns when they fought that middleweight fight.
Shorter, lighter, but he imposed that will on him. It was do or die that night for him. Period.
Absolutely.
Yep, it sure was, man. It sure was.
Yeah, because anyhow he slipped up and gave Tommy range. He knew Tommy could knock him out. He knew he could knock him, so he wasn't gonna give him no range. You know?
I don't know about knock him out. That's one thing about Marvin Hagler. He got hit by some of the best baseball bats in the freaking boxing. And he
had a really solid chin, man. He could take those shots. He took Mugabe's best. Mugabe was knocking people out cold.
He was breaking their bones,
he had 25 knockouts. He pretty much was knocking everybody out. Guys like Frank the Animal Fletcher and guys like that who had good chins. Mugabe had knocked these guys out cold. So he was expecting to go in there and knock out Marvin Hagler. And you remember how arrogant Mugabe was on his way up to that Hagler fight. He really thought that he was going to be the man to beat Marvin Hagler. And
he thought he was old. He thought he was getting old and slowing down. And yeah.
See, I always looked at John Mugabe as a great junior middleweight. I didn't see him do too much at 160. And back then, man, those 4 pounds they made or 6 pounds between divisions. They made a huge difference. You know, right now all these guys want to switch weights and take over the 135 and the 140. Damn, I can remember fighters who moved up, and it just made such a difference. The classic was Bob Foster. Every time he tried to move up to the heavyweight division, and he had a John Mugabe freaking right hand.
Well, if you remember, Bruce, back in the day in the 70s, to move up from middleweight, you had to go all the way to light heavyweight because really super middleweight wasn't a significant division until the late 80s. So back in the 1970s, for Carlos Monzon to move up and fight Bob Foster, because people always wanted him to do that. And then there was the other Argentina great fighter from over there. And he wasn't going to move up and fight those guys because there was a big amount of weight between 175 and 160. They didn't have that weight division in between. So for Marvin Hagler, you were asking him to do a lot to move up to fight Matthew Saad Muhammad and guys like that.
He was offered millions.
Middle ground and super middleweight.
They wanted him to fight Michael Spinks. Bob Arum offered him millions. And he said, no, I'm a 160-pound fighter. And nobody busted his balls. But today, you hear, well, if fighters say that, because he doesn't have the balls to go outside his division. But no, you rule your division like Marvin Hagler did. And, nobody's going to question you at light heavyweight or dropping down. I mean, I like an undefeated fighter who rules the division. Marvin Hagler did that for what, 7 years?
Yep, he sure did.
I mean,
A
shout out to
number of
Marvin.
string of defenses. He fought all the top fighters who were coming up at that time. Scipio Hamsho. Those guys had to fight to get a fight with Marvin Hagler. You know, because back then, top 10 ratings, you had to fight elimination bouts and things like that to actually get the fight. So those guys had earned their shot against Marvin Hagler. And when Marvin Hagler got in there and blew him out the water, some people would criticize some of the guys he fought, such as Hamsho and those guys who were really good fighters.
Oh, well, you know, they were building up Wilfred Benitez to fight Marvin Hagler. I remember that, man. You know, he beat like the guys like Doug DeWitt, you know, fringe middleweights. But then when he got in
the other
ring
guy too, Bruce Oba Mejias.
Oh, that's who I saw Hagler training for. Fulgencio Oba Mejias from Venezuela. He was
One hell of a fighter. One hell of a fighter right there.
Always ranked highly in the WBA. He was like a Thomas Hearns clone. You know, like
but when you're talking about Hagler, you know, people talk about Hagler, they want to move up. You know, they got to think about it. He fought bigger men because Hearns went all the way to heavyweight. And then there was Hamsho? Hamsho who fought Bobby Ches and went to 175 and beat Bobby Ches all the time, but he couldn't beat Hagler at 160 pounds. Remember him?
Yeah, well, yeah. You'll never hear of rehydration back then, and they might have gotten in the ring at 165, but as long as they made it the weigh-ins, the same day weigh-ins, they could go to their room and inject a gallon of water or however they rehydrate. I have no idea, and I've been in nutrition for 25 years, and you know, I know how to rehydrate somebody for maybe 5 or 6 pounds, but 20, 30 pounds, that's unheard of. I don't know how they do this.
Back in them days, they had to make weight, man. That's what they had to do. They had to make weight. Anything after it was Michael Spinks, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, because the rehydration thing was more of a network thing rather than a safety thing. 15 rounds was a safety thing. Rehydration was a network thing because the fight got canceled on HBO between Michael Spinks and Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. That was on the scale. I'll never forget that too. I went to someone's house who had HBO so I could watch that fight, and Eddie Mustafa was saying the scales were rigged. He went out and he bought all these bags of sugar, these 5-pound bags. I don't know if you remember that. And he stacked the 5-pound bags of sugar on the scale to prove that he made 175. It was really weird. And Michael Spinks, he didn't want to hear it. They wanted to pay Spinks more, and he didn't want to hear it. He just said he was sipping sipping something, maybe some soup, and he gave that good. Michael Spinks said very little anyway, but I didn't like that. I didn't like that about him. He just for a pound or two, it made that much a difference. He wouldn't give Eddie Mustafa the rematch, non-title or not. And yeah, that was a big thing on the scale back then, Blood. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad was Eddie Gregory. He was all over the place, anyways. He started out as a middleweight, and then he ended up moving all the way up to heavyweight to fight Ronaldo Snipes.
Yeah, he lost a decision. Everybody thought he was going to take Snipes on, and Snipes was another one, man. I liked Ronaldo Snipes.
Oh yeah, he was a cool guy. He had a little bit of a cocky personality.
Definitely cocky. Get this smoke. How you doing, Peter Van Ox? Aiden Nice, how you doing, brother? Yeah, he definitely did, man. But I'll tell you though, when he knocked down Larry Holmes, that was, and I think after that he fought Trevor Burbick, didn't he? And he knocked Trevor Burbick down with that.
Yeah, he did. He gave Trevor Burbick was kind of like the boogeyman of the heavyweight division, but Snipes didn't mind getting in there with Trevor Burbick.
And Trevor Burbick was a sloppy fighter. I never really, even though he's Jamaican, never really cared for Trevor at all.
Yeah, he's an asshole, Trevor Burbick.
Yeah, I never cared for him. I just never did.
He was a genuine asshole, and his own family member ended up murdering him because over some money or something like that. But he was a little arrogant son of a gun. I think that's why him and Larry Holmes ended up having that fight outside that time
Well,
where Larry Holmes ran
that
him
and the fact that
hard.
he didn't know how to watch his mouth. Blood. He talked about the man's wife, and I mean, he just didn't know how to watch his mouth. And Larry Holmes is a professional, but you don't want to. Larry Holmes is not going to let you push him. Let's just put it like that. You understand me?
Trevor really was a sick individual. You know, he did 5 years in prison with this the same time Mike Tyson did. Trevor Berbick was in jail for rape. You know, he fucked around with his babysitter, his kid's babysitter. He was a bad apple. He totally disrespected Ali. I mean, I did not.
That's what it was, I think, with Larry Holmes too. Because after he beat Ali, it wasn't like thank you or nothing. He was just all over it. Like I beat him. You know, it was too much. It was too much.
Well, Mike Tyson whispered to Ali in the ring the night that Ali fought Larry Holmes.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my revenge.
I'm gonna get him for you because once again, Larry Holmes did the. Larry Holmes didn't disrespect Muhammad Ali. Larry Holmes was just put in a position. He had to do what he had to do. But some people never forgive him for it.
Not like Trevor Berbick did. And
Yeah.
Berbick, he had a big ego, man. I was glad when he lost to Ronaldo Snipes. But he had some pretty big wins. He beat Big John Tate. Big John Tate was a big-time heavyweight from that won an Olympic gold medal from out of the early 80s and late 70s. And Trevor Berbick basically took John Tate's heart from him, you know, during the build-up to that fight and everything like that. And Tate, I don't know, he just seemed to be scared of Trevor Berbick. Trevor Berbick was a tough guy, had a really good chin. He could punch hard. He was kind of a bully type of personality. He tried to do that with Larry Holmes, but Larry Holmes wasn't having that.
Larry Holmes jumped over a car on that Batman. Remember, Blood?
Oh yeah, and he also beat him too. Larry Holmes also defeated him in the ring. It went the distance, but Larry Holmes gave Trevor Berbick a good ass whooping when they fought.
He jumped over that car, though, didn't he?
That was only a couple of days ago too, because Joe Louis died the next day. I remember watching that on a Saturday night.
He did. Yep, you're right.
And Joe was at ringside, and I think it was Jim Lampley was talking about how how Joe didn't look good, and there was a puddle of urine when they wheeled him away. You know, it was just very ominous. And the next day, Joe Louis died. It was just one of those coincidences. But I think John Tate. I think Mike Weaver took it out of him when he fought. Berbick, he was in reverse the whole fight. He even got knocked out with running. He was
running, and Berbick actually hit him on the back of the head while he was running. and that
was on the undercard of Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, the first fight.
Yeah, it sure was. Yep.
And there was a fatal fight in that. Gratian Toner. Was it Gratian Toner?
Yep. Gratian Toner. Some people say Gratian, but you could say Gratian or you could say Gratian. The announcers used to say Gratian.
And who was the fighter who killed him? I can't remember right now. But who at the Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, there was a tragedy in that fight on the first, not the main event on the card. That was Berbick and
yeah, there was. You're right. There was. You mean on the Sugar Ray Leonard Thomas Hearns card, right?
No. The Sugar Ray Leonard Duran card. There was a Canadian fighter, and he got killed in the ring, and I can't remember who. Damn. No, the names escape me right now, but yeah, there was a death in the ring once again back then, and that was at the time where they were, right around 1980. That whole era, they were talking about shortening fights and improving the ring conditions. A lot of people were dying back then.
I tell you what. If you
there you go, Aaron Pryor versus Hart. It was Aaron Pryor.
His name was Cleveland Denny.
Cleveland Denny. Yeah.
I tell you what, I made the mistake of doing. I watched the fight when Emil Griffith and the gentleman that he fought that died in the ring, right? And I could never unsee that. I could never. You just slumped in the corner, and the cameraman was like, "It's just you don't unsee those things." So I don't ever like watching those type of fights. Just like the Nigel Benn fight with Gerald. Don't like that either. Because that was the end right there.
Well, Emil Griffith and Benny Kid Perret, they had a personal thing going on.
Yeah, because he called him a faggot. He called him a faggot, yeah.
And all that kind of stuff.
And
said some pretty disturbing things to Griffith during the build up to that fight. And Griffith, who wasn't even really known as a knockout puncher at all.
He was aggressive as hell, though. Yeah, he was aggressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I saw this special where Benny Kid Parrot's son spoke to Emil Griffith, and he told him that we don't hold you responsible. And Emil was probably in his 70s. He was old.
Wow! I've never seen that. Is that on YouTube?
It's got to be.
I'm gonna look that up. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, he had the tears in his eyes. It was really touching. He says, we don't. My mother and I, we don't blame you for any of this. This is boxing, and one of those ones that make you go, whoa,
I'll tell you what, I went whoa when I saw Nigel Benn make his attempt to talk to Gerald McClellan.
Oh.
Did you see that? Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
That was pretty cold right there, man. That hit Nigel Benn pretty hard.
A fight that scared me because I'm real personal with the fighter that it happened to. Simon Brown versus Vincent Pettyway. That scared the hell out of me, man.
Oh yeah,
that scared me because it looked like he was having a seizure in there and all that. It scared the living hell out of me when I saw that. Because that showed you how tough he was. Even when he's unconscious, he's still punching.
Yeah, that was a vicious knockout right there, man.
Yeah. But what people don't know is that Vincent was pissed off at Simon because I don't know if you remember when Vincent had leaned outside the ring, right? Outside the ropes. And Simon leaned right with him and kept punching him. That actually pissed Vincent off. That pissed him off. And Vincent, even though he didn't have a chin, he could crack. He can punch, right?
Yes, he could.
And then when Simon went to throw his left hook, he left his feet. And Vincent caught him with that. Was it a right hand he caught him with, blood? I think
it was. I think it was a right hand.
And then that put Simon because the first mistake was he left his feet. And he took the full blow of that right hand, and Vincent can crack. Hey.
Yes, he could.
He can punch.
Nick M, you got it, man. Grayson Hart and Cleveland Denny. Those were the two fighters. And Cleveland Denny. Was Cleveland Denny the one who died? I can't even remember.
Yeah,
man.
Cleveland Denny is the one who passed away. And it was actually, I mixed up. I thought you were talking about Gratchi and Tunna. But no, it wasn't him. It was a different guy named Grayson.
I'll tell you, man, Blood, my memory is so shot these days, man. It gets me so frustrated sometimes. These things I could rap off like they just spill off my tongue years ago. I get stuck all the time for names, and I'm like, damn, why can't I know that better than I know my wife's name, It's like, damn, but man, I guess it's part of getting old. That's why I take these memory pills that I take. I can't even remember the name of them. Cognitum. But hey,
I probably need to start taking them my damn self because sometimes I know the fighter and I'll say the wrong name and things like that. The other day I was talking about Howard Cosell and I accidentally called him Howard Stern or some shit. I make those kind of mistakes all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'll tell you, man, it gets not only frustrating, but you're up here and it gets embarrassing. It's like, you're supposed to know that. And I was like, what the fuck? I said, just bear with me for a second. Let me hit the Toka 2. It'll come back to me. And it does. And hey, Mad Chad's in here. Shout out my brother Mad Chad, and L Dub is in here, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you cats coming in. I'm going to kind of wind it up because I want to go for a little walk with the dog and get ready for this fight coming up this afternoon at 3 o'clock.
That's a good idea. I think I'm going to take a walk myself, Bruce.
Yeah, man. I'm going to do the same thing. Well, we sound like men of a certain age. We'll go for a walk.
That's it, my brother. That's it, guys.
But all right, thank you, man. I'm going, man. I'm going to get ready to go for this walk. All right, man.
Thanks for coming by, Troy. Blood.
Hey, Bruce, thanks a lot again, man, for having me on the show. Once again, another great boxing discussion, man. I always appreciate talking to the old school fight fans. And thanks for having me, man. That's all I could say. Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns, the anniversary, man. Great fight. It was a war. Man, one hell of a fight. It's a big part of boxing history. I appreciate
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Blood. God bless. Peace.
it. Okay, man.
Derek Bailey, thanks for coming up here, man. All you cats, L Dub, Joe, Mad Chad, Nick M, man. Nick M, great freaking channel. Alden, Get This Smoke. I wish you were here earlier, Get This Smoke. You would have been a great member of this panel. Big Blunts, all you cats, man. All you cats would have been great up here, man. But I was honored to have my brother Blood Boxing and Troy Graham join me. Kind of Loco was in here, man. And hey, man, it was it's the day of a great fight, man. April 15th. If you don't have your taxes filed, get them filed. If you do, I hope you're getting a refund. I never did, man. No, Joe. My memory is shot, bro. I think it's from all this weed that I used to smoke in my younger days. But I'll just keep doing it, man. This is Bruce Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and more. Thank you so much for coming on here, man. Peace.